Morgan, the feature writer for the Marriage Initiative. And I am so happy to introduce Jackie Bledsoe to you today. Marriage champions, you are in for a real treat because Jackie and his wife, Stephana, were once sitting right where you are now. Realizing they needed help a year into their young marriage, the couple sought support from their church, a journey which led them to the place they are today, founders of Ministry Happily Married Couples and sought after speakers, not only for their own events, but also on Family Life's Weekend to Remember team. Jackie published best-selling The 7 Rings of Marriage in 2016 and coaches Christian creators about how to make their content more dynamic. Stephana homeschooled their 3 children and now serves on the church multiplication and discipleship team for the Wesleyan Church World Headquarters. They've been featured on ABC News, Good Morning America, The 700 Club, Moody Radio, The Huffington Post, CBN's Turning Point International, and YouVersion's Bible app. Jackie, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's going to be fun to get to talk to you. Tell us about your journey. You're a young man, you and your wife, and yet God's really led you to do some great things.
Yeah. So we've been married. We just actually celebrated our 22nd anniversary this past Friday. So pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's been a couple decades in the marriage game, but we connected. We actually are from the same hometown. Met each other in high school, not necessarily as high school sweethearts, but we did know each other and reconnected several years later after college, and then kind of started a friendship anew and have gone from there. And we've gone through ups and downs and 3 kiddos, and God has tremendously blessed us and saved our marriage throughout the years, because we really shouldn't be here where we are right now based on some of the challenges that we faced.
Well, talk about that. You were smart because, just a year into marriage, you said you started your premarital planning a year into marriage, but at least you did it. And you realized, man, we're newly married. We have a new baby. We need some help. So let's talk about that. Because I think the marriage champions, may have found themselves in the same situation, or maybe they're the ones mentoring, because that's such a big part of your story is the mentorship story. But it started there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say that we were desperate more than smart when we were a year into our marriage. We didn't, we weren't familiar, didn't know anything about premarital counseling and just, the things that we teach couples now and that couples do before saying I do. And so we just went into it based on our circumstances. And then, a year into marriage is really, really tough. A couple of years into it, tough. And we, at that time, our church, we just decided that we were going to go all in. We officially joined the church together that we were at the time that we were visiting, and just said we're going all in. And one of the things that the church offered were different classes and courses to help grow wherever part of your journey. And marriage was one that we were struggling with. And so we took a class, a marriage class, and it was not a premarital class, but it was like that for us because we were learning so many things that we didn't learn. And that just kind of opened up our eyes and our hearts to God's plan for marriage and sent us in a completely different trajectory than what we were going at the time. Without that, we're probably not here for sure, because that got us on the right path.
And then you met some mentors, right? That really helped you out.
Yeah. So the couple that was teaching that marriage class became our first marriage mentors. And they just kind of took us in, poured into us. They counseled us over those early years of marriage when needed. They actually, the wife, it was one of the teachers, the pastor was one of the pastors on the church. The wife also ran a daycare, so they actually cared for our daughter as well. So they kind of were all in, just helping and serving our family and teaching us through it. Not funny story, but we recently just ran into them less than 2 weeks ago. And we hadn't seen them in years, and they look the same, which is amazing, but it was so great to see them. And we got an opportunity to share with them how they had really poured into us. And because they were like, oh, you guys are doing so great. We're like, well, without you, we're not here. And so it's just a blessing to have those mentors, and it's a blessing too now to be a mentor to others and kind of see that full circle now.
Well, and that's where that first cast that light for you. And then, I bet that there's such joy when you got to see them again and for them to see the fruit of what they poured into you that 2 decades ago. And now to see how that's really blossomed. I bet they were just so happy. That's so neat. And that's what you're experiencing now too, even on the other end. Tell about how you went from being that struggling couple like some of our marriage champions, and now how that got you into marriage ministry. What was the jump? There's a big jump there.
Yeah, and I think it was a process over the years that we just didn't know what was happening. It was gradual. Shortly after in that class, that marriage class that we took, we met a few other couples that were around our age, newly married. I think one other couple had a young baby as well. And so we connect with them really on friendship and just kind of support. We hung out, we spent a lot of time together, and we formed our own small group, not through our church, but just because we liked hanging with these couples. And we formed something at the time that one other couple started. They called it Cup of Love. And that was just like our small group where every month we would get together as couples at someone's house, one of the couple's house. And that couple who hosted had also the responsibility of studying up, researching, and creating some sort of marriage enrichment activity or things to help us learn and grow in our marriage. And so we did that for a period of a couple of years. Little did we know that was shaping us as far as being able to teach and coach and work with other couples while we were receiving and also turning around and pouring out and sharing to other couples. Many of, some of the things that we learned during that season through the couple that mentored us and through those other couples and what we were studying is part of what we teach today. And, so we didn't realize it then, but God was already shaping and molding us for what we were going to do later on. And then fast forward, several years, I began writing primarily as a blogger. And that was really kind of a personal development blog that I started. But most of the lessons that I learned that I was sharing were from interactions between Stephana and myself. Something happened here and this is what I learned from it. Here's how we're growing from it. And that helped me to basically become, like the marriage guy. Other sites reached out and said, hey, we're looking for, we don't have many male writers who write about the topic of marriage. Would you be interested in writing for our site? So boom, now I'm freelance writing for different marriage sites and different family and relationship sites. And again, over a process of many years, there were certain things that we were doing, just really serving where we were and learning where we were. And God began to build from that and grow that, put his hand on it. And then he put his hand on it. And that's when it kind of reached other couples other than just our small circles.
Yeah. And then, like you said, you were a male voice in the marriage realm, and a young male voice too, because there have been some venerable leaders in the field that are maybe a little bit older than we are, the trailblazers, but
Yeah.
you were a young male voice and a modern male voice. And then they picked you up. And how did that become happily married couples? How did your ministry with you and Stephana, how did that evolve out of that?
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of freelance writing again, writing for different marriage sites, my own as well. And I got connected with a guy by the name of Michael Hyatt, I was learning from him, not in marriage, but in how to get my writing and all that notice and build a platform online. Well, that led to exposure. He featured me on some videos. That led to a connection with Lifeway. And Lifeway, they reached out to me and we connected and shared some ideas. And one of the ideas was the 7 Rings of Marriage, which became a book. And they loved that idea, said, hey, we want to publish that. We also want to publish a Bible study with it. And then we started speaking from there. And so that was really what I say is our public birth into marriage ministry. Because from that point on, it was just really our small audiences. But that content from the 7 Rings of Marriage and the speaking and those opportunities that followed became happily married couples, because at the time I was only creating content for myself on my site, which was JackieBledsoe.com. And I was realizing this is outgrowing Jackie Bledsoe. So we need a place that we can house and serve couples strategic or just specifically for their marriage. And that's where the idea of happily married couples came about. And it was about probably 2 or more years after the fact that I got that idea that I actually created it. So happily married couples, I didn't create it until COVID. That shutdown gave me time and space to work on things that I hadn't been working on. And there it came from there. And then from there, we just continue to serve couples through happily married couples.
And it's a great site. I've been on it and it is so very interactive. Could you tell our marriage champions what they'll find there when they go to your website? Because again, it is one of the best. You are so good with technology and making things accessible and user friendly and fun to look at. Let's open the door to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's encouraging. So first thing you go there, it's happymarriedcouples.com. But there's a quiz that we strongly suggest you take. It's marriage assessment, basically a short quiz that you take to kind of assess where you are in your marriage. When you do that, that is going to give you some information about, okay, here's where you are. It's going to tell you which of the 7 rings of marriage that you're wearing. Then it's going to give you a customized plan of what you need to do next to continue to grow your marriage. In addition to that, we've got some of we did a pilot season, which we didn't continue because of time, logistics, and things, for couples who are building a marriage ministry together or a business together. So you can check out those podcast episodes. But overall, it's just got really information that we found has been helpful to couples over the year, free resources. We've got premium resources available as well. And then we also have that we open the door. We have a membership community that we open the doors a couple times a year to couples to join and just be a part of couples who want to go deeper and have a community that they can really share and be honest and transparent while growing their marriage.
Kind of like you did back in your cup of love days.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah, no, I like that. Well, you alluded to it already, but your book, your flagship book, The
Yeah.
7 Rings of Marriage. Let's talk about that. Let's share the secrets of what's in that.
Yeah. So you want me to go through the rings, or what do you want
Sure.
to do?
Yeah, talk
Yeah,
about
yes.
how you got the idea for it first. And I love that you had a little help from your wife.
Yeah. So I remember it originally started. Again, I was freelance writing at the time, a lot. When I say a lot, I was writing like 50 new articles, blog posts, emails per month, all completely. It was not the same thing repurposed. And so I was always coming up on, okay, I've got something to write. And so I was always curating ideas. And one night I went to Trader Joe's by myself and I was listening to, I think, probably Moody Radio on the way home. I heard a sermon. The pastor was preaching about something completely not related to marriage. And in the middle of his sermon, he said, "Hey, you've heard about the 3 rings of marriage, right?" And he rattled off 3 rings, went right back to the topic of his sermon. So I was like, that's very interesting. I feel like God deposited that just for me. Uh, and then a couple of weeks later, I was writing for one of the sites and I was like, let me explore these ideas of rings of marriages. And I asked Stephana to sit down with me and join me. And so we were crafting these ideas. And so I decided to come up with wordplay on different rings for the seasons that we've gone through. And so we literally went down and, kind of mapped out all the different seasons of marriage that we've gone through and kind of what we've learned and created the 7 rings. So that's literally the 7 rings of marriage is our marriage journey. And we've, of course, grown and added to it and created different benchmarks and skills that are needed at each of the seasons. But that's where that came from originally. And Stephana helped me craft it out. And I always say the things that she works with me on end up being the most impactful for couples. And so that was one of those things. And it's we've been serving couples and ministering and helping couples for years off of that one simple sit 20-30 minutes on the couch to brainstorm and come up with this idea.
Yeah. Can you share what some of them are? Because you kind of take it cradle to grave is not exactly the right analogy. When you in the cradle to well, and again, there is not a grave, but of a marriage, it kind of goes through the seasons. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So if you want to stop and ask questions going through, just let me know. But the first ring is the engagement ring, which is very, very obvious. And that is really pre-marriage. That's when you are coming together, say, okay, yes, I want to be engaged with this person. We want to move forward. It's really a focus on, what is to come, the vision, the goals. But primarily it's creating a foundation that your marriage can grow big and long and strong off of. And then after that is the wedding ring, which is again another obvious one. Now we're put a ring on it. It's official. We've said I do in front of our friends and family and everybody. And now that we've officially made that commitment. And this is not a contractual commitment, but a covenant commitment. And then now after that, we're married, we're living together, our lives are merged, and now we're starting to discover things. So the discovering is the next ring where you start to learn all those things that you may not have seen in the engagement ring and dating stages and all that. But more importantly, is when you grasp the concept that you want to be intentionally discovering things about your spouse ongoing. So you want to be a lifelong learner. The 4th ring is kind of like the fork in the road, where some couples make a decision like, okay, things are not going where we want to. We either go left and get out or go right and stay in, or even to go stay in the marriage, but just resolve to not have a great marriage. And so that's the persevering, because couples can make a choice there. It's right in the middle, but you're actually persevering through those things. You're growing through them, and there's something greater on the other side when you do that together.
I love how
Um,
you said that in the discovering what you need to persevere through, sometimes the things that were once appealing now become appalling.
Yes, 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 yes. So those things that attracted you to your spouse were so appealing. Now in marriage, it can become a poly. For Stephana, that was me being so organized and neat, and then it got to the point in marriage it felt like I was being anal. So that was something that was appealing at first. She really was attracted to that, and then day in and day out of that, she didn't like it as much anymore.
I
So
don't want to see your t-shirt drawer. I'm
right.
sure it is so folded, it's scary.
Yeah. So that, we reached that persevering, and now you made a choice. When you do make the choice to stay in the marriage and grow and come out better on the other side, now you get to the point where, there have been some broken things in your marriage, broken hearts, things have shifted a little bit. Now you want to restore. So that's where the restoring comes in, where there requires forgiveness and grace. But most importantly, that restoration comes from God. That is something that you can't do on your own. You need to get him involved. And so couples will now go through the restoring. And then when you do that, you've been through a lot in your marriage. Now you're prospering. Not that your marriage is perfect and you don't go through challenges, because you still do, but now you're better equipped. And even those challenges that you went through, your perspective has changed. You're like, man, that is really not that deep. This one little thing here, the t-shirt drawer, whatever it is, that is really not that deep. So now you're prospering, and you're just like, wow, look at what God has done. And when you get to that point, the natural thing, and I say it's almost criminal to not do this, is mentoring, where now we've gone through a lot. We've experienced a lot. We persevered, restored our marriage. God has been faithful. Now we are almost obligated, in a great way, to turn around and help other couples who may be where we once were or will be there at some point in time.
Well, I love that you really bring in that mentoring aspect, because I
Yeah.
think that's where the heart of most of our marriage champions is. That's why they're watching. That's why they, want to get to know you and your resources. So let's dig down deep in mentoring. We kind of started there in the beginning and talked about the mentors that poured into you. You've had some others along the way too that have been very influential and still continue to be, even you personally as a man, and even those who've you had a great story about one of your mentors and the connections. I'd love for you to tell our marriage champions about that, just as an inspiration of what a
Yeah.
mentor, just what a chance connection can do in someone's life.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, we've had, that first mentor couple was a chance connection. We just connected with them for whatever reason. They connected with us as well. We've had mentors, pretty much not the same mentor throughout, but various couples who've served different seasons of just mentoring and friendship in our lives.
Well,
Um,
I think that's important too, that for our marriage champions to understand, when you commit to be a mentor, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with that person forever, that you're not making that, maybe it could be, but it also could be like a season, like you pour into for a season and then you come back around 2 decades later, like you did with that couple, and then see the beauty of the fruit of your investment.
Yeah, yeah. And they've all been very organic. Let me say that too, because some couples say, okay, how do I find a mentor? How do I become it? It's not this application process like, will you be my mentor? Sometimes it can be as direct as that. But our mentors really came about because we saw something in them that we really were attracted to as a couple and liked. And we serve them as well. So we wanted to be of value to them and not just receiving and whatever it is that we could add value as, and just being, good friends, and also receiving the hard truths and conversations and accountability that comes with a mentor who really, really loves and cares for you, because they'll tell you that hard stuff. But over the years, one of our mentors, couples now, and is really like a spiritual father to me now. We met at a marriage conference that we were attending over probably about 10 years ago now, at least 10 years ago. And we were attending, and, they shared some stuff during the conference, and we got some breakthroughs, but I really just found myself really attracted to the husband. As far as what he was into, he played basketball in college. I played basketball in college, and he had an interest in playing tennis, which very few basketball players do, and I do as well. And so we connected from that point. I was like, man, he's interesting. I really like that. And we connected at that conference, and we stayed in contact. They've mentored us, him and his wife. They've coached us. They've counseled us, everything. And he's some of the stuff with my book has come about because of him, but it's just been a real blessing to connect in. And every Tuesday we actually sit and pray together, or not sit, but we on the phone, we pray together every single Tuesday. And we've done that for years. And he probably knows more than about me in my life than anybody outside of my immediate family, my wife and our kiddos. But it's been a blessing to have mentors like that over the years.
Yeah, and he's a little bit older than you, and so he's a step ahead, which is
Yep.
sometimes how we find those mentors. But he has an interesting story too with and then so tell the rest of the story and how that connected you.
Yeah, yeah. So like we connected because of basketball. That was one of the common things. This my mentor's mentor is Dr. Gary Chapman, author of the Five Love Languages, who
Right.
actually led my mentor's name is Dr. Clarence Schuler. He Dr. Chapman led Clarence to Christ as a young boy through the means of basketball. And so they went, him and his friends went and played basketball. Like Dr. Chapman was doing something there at the church, and they connected and built a relationship, a friendship. And over time, he mentored him, to basically introduce him to Christ. And then over the years, have continued to mentor him. So to the point that Clarence's kids call him, they're like their spiritual godfather or grandfather, I guess. They're like family pretty much. But that relationship right there, you pointed it out when we talked previously. I didn't even think of it like that. But I'm a product of the teaching, the mentoring, the marriage counseling and coaching that has been poured from Dr. Chapman to Clarence through me over the years. And this is a relationship that was fostered, probably in the 60s, 50, 60s or 70s. I don't even know when it was, years and years ago.
Yeah. I mean, how miraculous to see God's hand with Dr. Gary
Yeah.
Chapman, who I'm sure all of our marriage champions know. I've had the privilege to interview him, and he is
Yeah.
just I mean, the superlatives cannot express what
Right.
a wonderful person he is. But
Right.
he poured into Dr. Schuler, who's probably what in his early 60s maybe now,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then he's poured into you, and the fruit that is just experiencing that all our marriage champions can benefit from, and your children and
Yeah.
the people that you mentor. It just is just miraculous when you think
Yeah.
about how the depth and the breadth of the influence of just one person, and each
Yeah.
one of us can be that one person.
Yep, yep, and just the chance encounter too of them, their love of basketball. Apparently, both of them love basketball. That connected them. That led Clarence to Jesus, and that relationship, my love of basketball. So it's basically, the things that we're always talking about. Start where you are. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Find people in those spaces. God will build those relationships and pour into them how He wants to. And so those are relationships that we didn't know. I'm sure they didn't think anything about marriage at the time. But think of all the couples that Dr. Chapman has influenced, that Dr. Schuler has influenced, and now that we are influencing. It's amazing and something that none of us could have planned out.
Yeah. And Dr. Schuler actually is quoted in one of your other books. It's your smaller ebook, but it's one of the things that you offer on the website for marriage champions. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so we have a book where it was based on a summit that we did where we interviewed couples who we thought had amazing marriages that we've learned from throughout the years and could share something good with our audience. And we took some of those questions. I think there was one specific question, and we compiled them together. I think there's 19 different couples that we put into this book. And basically, it's like, what's your single greatest advice that you give a couple or that you received? And they shared that. And so Dr. Schuler, Clarence, and Brenda Schuler shared theirs. There were many, many other couples, but it's basically like a quick hit. Here it is. Okay, what's the one single greatest piece of advice? And all those 19 couples share something, and it is amazing the advice that they have given that can be put into anybody's marriage as well.
Yeah, I know when I actually read through it and did a deep dive on that, and there were several common themes. One of them for sure was prayer and
Mm.
praying together. That was
Yep.
one of the common themes that I noticed. I don't know if you remember offhand any of the others.
No, I don't. People ask all the time, people come up and say, "Hey, you said this about such and such in your book." And I'm like, "Did I say it in the book?" I don't remember exactly what I said in the book because there's so much other content, so many other places that I've created.
That's
But
true.
yeah, prayer. I know prayer is definitely a common theme. That's something that Clarence, when we're talking and I'm expressing challenges, he's like, "Okay, how is your prayer? Like, are you guys praying together? Are you praying together consistently? That is one thing that he continues to go back to, even at the stage of our relationship and our marriage and our ministry. It's something that he constantly reminds me of.
Yeah, I just found it. He said communication was one of them, prayer, connection, sacrificial service,
Mm.
and then of course, hand in hand with with prayer is foundation on Christ,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
which I
Yeah.
would think would be the is really. I mean, we're all in agreement of that being a huge stepping stone. I can't imagine having trying to do marriage without that foundation on Christ.
Yeah, yeah, we got to have communication with the creator of marriage, with the author of marriage. And so he knows exactly how it should work. So if we're not that don't have that line of communication open and consistently, then that can things can creep up and sneak in. And so I think that is a way to continue to fight that off and be prepared.
Yeah. I know another theme on your website that and of happily married couples is the celebrating. You talk about not just having a marriage, but having a marriage that you are is worthy of celebrating. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I have you don't hear that as much, and that's such an inviting and endearing term and way of thinking about a marriage.
Yeah, yeah. So many, in today's society, and I think it's been not just today, but for years, probably decades, it's like you think it's painted the picture that marriage is now the downside of life. It's not the fun side of life. But marriage is something to be celebrated. God created this for us to get joy out of, in addition to all the other reasons He created it from. And some couples resolve to just, okay, we're in it now. It's about our kids. Now it's about work. Now our intimacy, our sex life is not what it used to be, but it doesn't have to be. And so we want to encourage couples to celebrate it. It is a great and beautiful thing, especially when you have God in it and you are practicing principles that are bringing you closer together, and you get to experience doing life with someone who's your best friend, and so many joys come from it. But it is a really great thing, from dating, from creating different experiences together, having kids and a family and watching that process together as you're raising kids together. It is definitely something to be celebrated. That's part of what happily married couples is about, is we want to not paint the picture, because I think it's there, but we want to shine the light that marriage is a great thing. And it's not the ball and chain that some people say. It's not, the end of the fun. All that stuff can be even more fun and have even greater experiences in marriage. And so just opening your mind to that as a starting place, but continue to practice the things that will going to bring you, your connection deeper and stronger in your communication as well, can lead to that celebrating. And ultimately, when you connect mentally or intellectually, when you connect emotionally, when you connect spiritually, then, that is going to be something to celebrate.
Yeah. I just returned from a trip with my husband recently, and we had some really good time. It was not just a weekend; it was a longer time, and we were in a completely new place that we'd never been before. And it was so fun for us, and I noticed how everybody was traveling as a couple.
Hmm.
And there were couples like us that had been married for almost 3 decades, and you know I carried the bag, and we have our processes down, and
Yeah.
but even the younger couple, everyone was a couple, and it was really interesting to see how that's just kind of how humankind
Yeah.
works. And then too, there was a point when we have a young adult son, and he called us, and my husband and I, we were having this great time, and we were laughing, and I was giggling at something my husband was doing, and my son went, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna leave you guys to it," because we realized we were having mom and dad time, and we were
Yeah.
celebrating. And you had mentioned that one of your mentors had challenged you and Stephana with, what are your kids seeing in your
Yeah.
marriage? Would
Yeah.
they want the marriage that you have?
Yeah, yeah. So they asked the question to Stephana first is, would your kids want to be married based on the marriage they see day in and day out of your home? And at the time, we could not answer yes. It was humbling. We were like, wow, that led to some changes, definitely. But it makes you think, what are they seeing? And are they seeing joy? Are they seeing frustration and pain? But we have an opportunity to shine a great light on marriage, starting with our kids and then extending from there as after that point. But I think marriage is a great thing. Yes, it can be hard. And we hear that probably way too much. Marriage is hard, but anything that is worth working for, worth in life, there is some hard aspects to it. Marriage is not immune to that, but I think it's a beautiful thing that God has created that we get to experience in so many different levels that we don't have to go through life alone. We're not taking vacations alone. We're going with our, our spouse, our best friend,
Yeah.
that person that knows just as much about us as we do, and that we just want to have fun with, on various levels of it. So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it was. It was really neat to see that, just not only just for us, but for everyone. And then I did, when you talked about that mentor challenging, I did ask our
Mm,
young adult boys. I said, "Well, what do you think? What would you see?" Neither one of them's married yet or has a serious girlfriend. And it's like, "What do you think?" And I think, marriage champions, that would be a really interesting challenge for you to think, and you to think about your own marriage, and ask, like Jackie did. And then
yeah,
if there's some changes you need to make, that's a good inspiration, and you know where to find some help.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I will add this too. We recently, I don't know, not like last couple weeks recently, but maybe several months ago, we did have this conversation with our kids who are now 22, 17, and 13. And the conversation is different than it would have been had we had that conversation with them, a decade or so ago. They are looking forward to, having a spouse and a family and all those things, which, really gave our hearts joy to see, because we still see there's challenges. They see everything, but even through that, they see light and God's hand and reasons to celebrate and reasons to be a part of this thing called marriage.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, well, Jackie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
Oh, it was great talking to you.
it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, and as always, marriage champions, you can find out more about Jackie and Stephana and happily married couples at marriageinitiative.org.